All right, my friends, welcome back. It is time for another retro review reaction video. And this week I decided to do something a little bit different. Instead of kind of cherry picking and finding something that caught my eye or that I have a fond memory of, I decided to open up the Motorweek retro review playlist and scroll all the way down to the bottom and cross my fingers that I found something interesting, and I did. It is a 1983 Volkswagen Rabbit GTI. Let's get into this because I'm excited to watch this one.
Thanks, Joyce. End of our futures class. Time now for our zoology lesson. Let's look at Exhibit 1. This is a jackrabbit, a common wild rabbit found mostly in the western bush. Jackrabbits are noted for their speed, agility, and ability to camouflage their appearance against predators. Oh, and they also seldom sit still. Now this, on the other hand, is your standard domesticated Easter-type bunny. Cute, huh? Well, he's perfectly happy sitting still and munching a few pieces of green. You might say that this little bugger is like another rabbit we know, the four-wheel variety made by Volkswagen of America. A nice little car, and as we found out in our recent comparison test against other subcompacts, it's neither the best nor the worst in its class. But that mediocrity is nibbling away at U.S. sales and even threatens VW's assembly hutch in Pennsylvania. Solution? Why not turn loose the jackrabbit? Now, this isn't exactly the Western Plains, and that little car coming towards us sure looks like any other garden variety Volkswagen Rabbit. But wait a minute, it doesn't sound like a rabbit, and it sure doesn't move like a rabbit, at least not the kind we're used to. Sure enough, that's just what it is. But hold on there, though. I think we've discovered an entirely new species. This is the world's first ferocious cottontail, the Rabbit GTI.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because what a convoluted way to introduce this car. Talk about a jackrabbit versus a bunny, and the Rabbit is the Volkswagen Rabbit is mediocre and happy to sit around, whereas the GTI is the jackrabbit version. Okay, yeah, I see where they were going with it, but they were really stretching it, primarily because the bunny and the jackrabbit are two completely different and incompatible species with each other. So anyway, I love the old Rabbit, or the Golf, as it's known around the world. I hope they show some more. Maybe I'll wade into this a little bit more, but it is tiny by today's standards, but to me, it's an achievement, and it's a little bit of a sad story. They moved to front-wheel drive, unibody. They did everything right and made a wonderful car to drive, and then the Japanese come along and just crush them in terms of sales. And it's always been kind of sad to me. VW was right there at the bleeding edge, I guess, of front-wheel drive compact cars. Part of it is to this day, I really like Volkswagens. I think they make some really handsome cars. I personally happen to think the Golf is just about perfect. It is, however, a little expensive, and I don't trust it in terms of quality. I know people who've had them, and they have been fantastically reliable cars, and then I know people who've had a lot of trouble with them, as a matter of fact. So, this generation, one thing that's always stood out to me about it is just how well designed and how well proportioned it is. There's a lot of cars that, if you get Giugiaro involved, it ends up looking just a little weird. There were other manufacturers that were trying to do something similar, and the Golf just hit it. Whether it was Austin over in the UK or whether it was Renault in France, other people were trying to do this. They all ended up looking just a little funky. But I think VW absolutely nailed the proportions and the styling on this car. I really love it that much.
This here is already the hottest selling sports sedan on European autobahns, and now it's finally being made in America, part of a strong effort to put new spring into Rabbit sales. First, let's take a quick look at the red trim grille, the excellent black finish, one of only 4 serious colors available, at the businesslike air dam and the blacked out fender flares, and those super looking alloy wheels carrying sticky Pirelli P6 radials. That might be the last good look that you're likely to get because, like the Jackrabbit, the GTI seldom stops for long. Compared to the standard 5-speed Rabbit, the GTI is almost 2 seconds quicker from 0 to 60, an exhilarating time of 9.7 seconds, and boy does it sound good. The longest throw shift lever is connected to closely spaced gearing that produced a very quick time of 4.4 seconds over our 40 to 55 emergency passing test. The gearing is so low and the engine so willing that there's plenty of oomph left even in top overdrive. On American interstates, the Rabbit GTI will be a quick pleaser at getting on or off the ramps. A time of 8.8 seconds at 56 miles per hour over our 500-foot simulator rates at the top of our scoring card. Gone is the tinny sound of the old Rabbits. Here to stay, we hope, is the wheel-spinning excitement that only a quarter-mile time of 17.2 seconds at 74 miles per hour can bring.
Okay, so I'm not sure. It's interesting to go back to 1983 and hear that 9.7 seconds 0 to 60 is exhilarating when, you know, mid-size four-door sedans do that now, right? But these are good numbers, and certainly for the price, right? These are good numbers back then. Interested to see what they say about the braking. Let's watch.
A bigger clutch meant we could do this all day long without any slip or worry. Under the hood, there isn't much to tell you that the standard fuel-injected 4 has been bored out 65 cc's to 1.78 liters. That translates into 90 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, 22% more than normal, and a full 10% more torque. Our car didn't have the available air conditioning, and frankly, we didn't care. Why, we might even go so far as to say, don't order the AC so you can save weight. One thing, a lighter car meant that through our low-speed switchback, the GTI was outstanding. Steering response, unchanged from regular Rabbits, was aided by better McPherson strut calibration, larger front and rear anti-sway bars, and spring rates 22% stiffer than normal. And in our high-speed emergency avoidance test, the GTI was the epitome of smoothness, which is a good way to describe the car overall. But all this doesn't mean the GTI is harsh on normal highways. We were very impressed at the way it absorbed bumps without a thump. Plus, a noise level of 70 decibels at 55, while only average, is better than most higher performance cars.
Interesting. So, you know, the GTI made a legend for itself by being quick and nimble. It's ridiculous to hear those numbers from that engine these days and to hear people raving about it. You know, 1.8 liters and 90 horsepower. Woo! But at the time, this was the hot hatch. This was the cool. This was cool and affordable sportiness without getting crazy about something. And you know, as much as I like my Japanese cars, I've always found, not every single one of them, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make too blanket of a statement here, but German cars just feel different. I may not trust their reliability as much, but they feel different. The way they handle and the way they ride and that sense of solidity about them. So I'm not surprised that they're saying it handles great, nearly perfect in handling, and then it still rides well on the interstate too. I want to criticize that 70 decibels. That's a little high. This is going to be a noisy little car that would get old on the interstate, at least probably if you're out of your 20s. But it's a small little car. We all know it, and they're trying to keep weight down. They could have thrown more sound deadening in there or whatever, but you know, we accept it for what it is. Unfortunately, they're comparing that 70 decibels to sportier cars, not family sedans, and it would really fail there. But I don't think anybody buying a GTI is really like, oh, should I get the Oldsmobile or the GTI?
As for that traditional Rabbit selling point, fuel economy, you hardly lose a thing. The EPA rates the GTI at 26 city and 36 highway. In actual practice, we registered 32, only 1 mile per gallon less than we experienced on the regular Rabbit. The power front disc rear drum brakes were taken directly from the German version of the GTI and were also impressive. From 30, low-speed panic stops averaged a brief 31 feet with no lock or fade and a solid feeling pedal. The story was the same from 55, with an average of 6 panic stops measuring 114 feet, well inside our short range.
That's a fantastic number. It really is. I've started to say on these that really 115 is the magic number for me. 114 is great. That, however, was rather exciting. At least they didn't comment on how easy it was to control, even though everything locked up and there's a cloud of smoke at the end of it. It stops. And this is 83. We're not having ABS installed on these things yet. And sure, it slid and pulled a little bit, but that looked very controllable to my eyes. And let's just say that gas mileage number, that's really good. That's really fantastic. There is something to be said for a low horsepower, tiny car of low weight and no real rear crush zone, it looks like. Yeah, mass is the killer. And wow, only to lose 1 mile per gallon. And they said, I think the engine made 20% more horsepower. That's really impressive.
Although some may find the non-power steering a bit muscular for parking, at least you won't complain about the 32-foot turning diameter, among the lowest on any car today. The GTI's interior is refurbished Rabbit with some important additions. Despite the loud fabric, the hard front bucket seats were generally well liked. The main dash includes a big tachometer, where the oversized clock used to dwell, along with water temperature and fuel readouts.
Interesting dash. Again, let's roll it back to 83 here. I quite like it for 83. Lot of plastic and looks like a lot of joints, but it's okay. It's all right. I like the gauges. My Volkswagen was somewhat similar, and with all the little lights, what do you need? Here's a light for everything. You don't need a bunch of gauges. Radio up top where you're going to get it. Heater control underneath, and then this huge hole just sitting there, because you'll notice there's no center vents. Now, I know they said this car doesn't have AC, but there's no vents in the center here. Just looks like the one here, and I guess one on the other side. I guess VW just thought it was too small. They didn't need 4 vents in the front. And I'm sure it's a GTI thing. They've got these gauges down here on the floor. That looks like an afterthought to me. But ergonomically, I have no problems. I don't love the steering wheel. That's just me. I really don't love it. But overall, I kind of like the interior. It's a little too rectilinear, let's face it. But for its time, I think this is a pretty good looking interior.
Rest of the meters, both oil temperature and voltage, as well as a smaller clock, now lie on a small console below. We'd rather have them up top, but this location is an acceptable compromise. Unchanged is the huge Rabbit carrying capacity, with a seat that folds completely forward. Under the cargo floor is a full-size spare. For some reason, it turned out to be a completely different brand of tire from the ones on the other 4 wheels. But enough euphoria. What about price? One of the reasons Rabbits have sold so poor of late is they're perceived as being too costly when compared to their mostly Oriental rivals. The GTI is based at $7,990. Our test car with vent windows and a good but overpriced radio comes in at $8,600. So add another $650 for AC and you'll still have a car that can't be touched in performance for almost half again the price. It goes, it handles, it stops, it does it all. And if Volkswagen of America would just make all its domesticated hares like the GTI, their fortunes have just got to multiply. The Volkswagen Rabbit GTI, that's some car.
Well, obviously they missed the boat on that one. VW has had ups and downs and minor ups and more downs, and they closed their factory, and Had a lot of quality problems, and it's so interesting to go back to 1983 and think that people were looking at, you know, an $8,000 car and being like, "Woo, that's kind of expensive." Also hard to believe that a radio and vent windows took that thing up to 8,600. But anyway, good review, good car. They could have spent some more time on the interior. It's one of the things about Motorweek that's always kind of killed me is I guess it's as they've changed over the years, you know, here's the access to the rear seat, here's the space in the rear seat, here's us folding down the rear seats to expand the cargo area. Where's that final piece where they're like, here's two of its competitors you may consider, right? And maybe there really wasn't a competitor for it here in America, but maybe talking about the Rabbit and I don't know, the Civic and the Corolla, and comparing base prices and then showing how much more you're getting. I don't know. There could have been a lot more to this. Didn't love the seat fabric, but I don't know. I kind of like that VW uses some wild seat fabric sometimes. It always looks pretty cool. So fun trip down memory lane. I don't know I would want to own this car. That's the thing. Well, I really like the GTI. I don't know. I just don't think I'd be happy with one long term. Number one, it was only 2 doors. I like 4 doors. Ease of access to get to the back seat and throw things in. That's the big one for me. I'm one of those few people out there who were like, yay, they came out with a 4-door GTI. I think this would be droning and noisy, and even if it was brand spanking new with a manufacturer's warranty, the only way I'd get one is if it was $9,200, $9,300 today. Then yeah, I'd absolutely think about it. But other than that, it's a fantastic piece of history, a cool car. I've never driven an 83 this generation GTI. I've driven a Rabbit, but not the GTI. And the Rabbit was a hoot. I loved it. Didn't have a lot of power, but it was a hoot. Much more entertaining than its Japanese counterparts. Let's put it that way. But anyway, if you've got a fond memory of the GTI, let me know below. But I appreciate you being here, guys. Thanks.